Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, I like learning about this. I think it says a lot more about us than just comedy, our comedy preferences. Let's go. We'll do a preemptive sub, like British versus American comedy, a comparative analysis. I like it.
Hi, I'm a recovering crackhead. This is my retarded sister that I take care of. I'd like some welfare, please.
You threw my sandwich away.
You can't hold it in, then you'll just have to piss yourself.
You're telling me to piss myself?
When it comes to comedy, it's satisfactorily, I think, obvious that
this is his
the
Animal
American
House
comic
analogy.
Hero is a wisecracker who is above his material and who is above the idiots around him. All the great British comic heroes are people who want life to be better and on whom life craps from a terrible height.
In an interview with Time magazine, Ricky Gervais was asked the differences between British and American comedy. In reply, he said, "It's often dangerous to generalise, but under threat I would say that Americans are more down the line. They don't hide their hopes and fears, they applaud ambition and openly reward success. Brits are more comfortable with life's losers. I've seen quite a few videos on this topic, but in my view, many don't go into enough detail when contrasting British and American comedy. The difficulty is that there are so many examples of comedy coming from both countries, and because of this it becomes almost impossible to do the question justice. In this video I will try to use as many examples of British and American TV shows to make my points. Consider these...
I think it's probably... it would do well for the conversation to compare contemporary things. Like comparing It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia to like Faulty Towers. You're not going to really be able to differentiate between British and American as much because you're going to have that variable of time. So
scenes.
What am I going to do then? I can't...
My points. Consider these scenes.
What am I going to do then? I can't hold on.
If you really can't hold it in, then you'll just have to piss yourself.
You're telling me to piss myself?
Yes, if you've got to go, piss yourself.
Is this what it's come to?
Yes, and do it quietly.
Great. And what shall I do after I've pissed myself? Fuck myself? Eat myself? You're such a...
Are you doing it already?
Yes, I'm doing it already. I'm so pathetic that as soon as you ordered me to piss myself, I started the procedure. This is what you've done. You've ground down my sense of self-worth.
it sounded like he was ready for another 10 minutes to argue his point. Nope, he just pissing.
I pissed myself. I started the procedure. This is what you've done. You've ground down my sense of self-worth over the years. I hope you're proud.
When are you going to stop?
Not for a bit.
Stop, Jeremy. Stop it. It's going down the cracks.
I can't stop. Stop. Oh, piss yourself. Stop pissing yourself. It's not that simple. The floodgates are open.
What is Monica's biggest pet peeve?
Animals dressed as humans.
That's correct.
What?
Pet peeve.
Animals dressed as humans.
That's correct.
Oh.
Ladies?
Same category.
According to Chandler, what phenomenon scares the bejesus out of him?
Michael Flatley, Lord of the Dance.
That is correct.
The Irish jig guy? His legs flail about as if independent from his body.
A lot of UK comedy takes
better.
a dark and depressing tone. In the scene from Peep Show, Mark is questioning whether he really loves Sophie and wants to get out of the wedding, whereas Jeremy ends up pissing himself rather than give away their hiding spot. Scenes like this take an ironic view on the world and life itself, seeing our decisions as futile and portraying life as a sort of hopeless nightmare that we're all trapped in, and that we all stumble through in a pathetic and clueless manner. The scene from Friends, on the other hand, has a group of close friends playing a quiz about each other. Despite the funny answers, the tone is one of hope, of friendship and unity. There's a heartwarming aspect to the comedy, knowing that the laughs come from a group of friends whose bond is so close that they are able to play quizzes about each other for a bet. This builds on to the crucial difference between the way that we, as spectators, react to comedy from the different countries.
Again, I think both have aspects of both, but overwhelmingly one or the other. Does that make sense?
I would argue the distinction between America and the UK is that in American comedy you laugh with the actors, whereas in British comedy you laugh at the actors. The Office UK and US provide a brilliant example of the difference between comedic style. In the UK version, we laugh at David Brent, at the kind of person he is. In the US version, Michael makes bad decisions, but he's not inherently unlikable. He has a youthful ignorance and endearing quality that makes us root for him despite all his shortcomings.
That is fascinating and a good point. Because I was going to be like, wait, but look at the American Office. We do kind of laugh at Michael Scott. But then I was going to say, well, that's an adaptation of a British comedy. But then you just said it's actually different. Oh, God. He's onto something.
There's a youthful ignorance and endearing quality that makes us root for him despite all his shortcomings. This builds onto a bigger point about the differences between American and British comic characters. Stephen Fry makes a brilliant point when he says,
Their lack of dignity is embarrassing. They are a failure. They are an utter failure. They're brought up to expect empire and respect and decency and being able to wear a blazer in public, and everyone around them just goes... Whereas the American hero is the smart talking, he's Jim Carrey and he's Ben Stiller and he's, whoever, he just goes all the way back. They can wisecrack their way out of any situation. They win the girl, they're smarter, they've got the biggest knob in the room. The British guy arrives in the room and says, oh my God, I've left my knob behind. Okay.
So with this in mind, let's look at some of the traits of characters of UK comedy. Will from The Inbetweeners, a posh loser who despite being intelligent frequently embarrasses himself and fails at every teenage hurdle. Jay is a lying, exaggerating, insecure loser. Neil is likeable but exceptionally stupid, and Simon is pretentious, cringy and tries too hard. Basil Fawlty is a man with anger management issues who runs a constantly failing hotel. Every plan seems to blow up in his face. Mark Corrigan is an insecure, self-loathing man in a dead-end job. Shares is a slacker, borderline drug addict who fails to ever do anything with his life. In Outnumbered, the entire family is dysfunctional and argumentative, failing to be able to perform any task, outing or event without conflict and issues. Mr. Bean is an odd social outcast. Even in Blackadder, the sharp-talking Rowan Atkinson never rules the roost, always doing the dirty work for stupid leaders and
But hold on. I want to say it like this way. All right, I'm going to go back here. But I feel like an American comedy, it would be like the jokes come in the door. Like the guests are the jokes. Whereas in a British comedy, it's the owner of the hotel that's the joke. I'm not, maybe I'm wrong, I'm not thinking stuff through, but I think that's a pretty good way of explaining it.
Never rule the roost, always doing the dirty work for stupid leaders and having every cunning plan fail. Now let's look at some of the characters of American comedy. Joey from Friends is a bit dim but always gets the girl, is loved by his friends, and despite his poor acting skills ultimately manages to become a soap opera star. Even a Friends character like Chandler, who starts out in a dead-end job, terrified of commitment and in a pit of self-loathing, ends the 10th season in an advertising position he loves, married to his best friend with a house in the suburbs and 2 adopted children. In Always Sunny...
I hated how The American Office ended. I hated it. It's like everyone found their match. Everyone had the perfect ending. Michael was there at the end. He's the best man, and everyone lived happily ever after. I didn't like that, and I feel like The American Office, I can talk about this forever. The American Office, I like the seasons 1, 2, 3 are peak. 1, 2, and 3. And then 4 and 5 are still good. 4 is definitely still good. 5 is good, but it's starting to change. And then it just goes downhill. And the reason it goes downhill isn't just because Michael Scott is no longer the main character after like season 7 or something. That's not the reason. The reason is because it was much more like the British style of comedy in the British Office in the earlier seasons. It was still very American, right? There are still a lot of differences, like you pointed out, in the difference between Michael Scott and David Brent. But it turned into just like it became less. The reason I love The Office, and a lot of people love The Office, is because you can imagine maybe, yeah, it's a bit wacky, especially the American one, but you can sort of imagine like, wow, working there. And then it just becomes unbelievable, and just some crazy, weird plot lines and stupid, just like the funniness was already there. It was, this is an office that a lot of people go through with coworkers they hate and a boss, it's whatever. And there's some comedy in between, but you don't need to feed more comedy than that, okay? But instead, it's like, no. Now, the idea that it's a paper company, it's a regular job, that's not it anymore. It's just it's like each episode becomes a movie with a weird plot, and I hate that. You know what I mean?
In Philadelphia, best friend with a house in the suburbs and 2 adopted children. In Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Frank might be going completely mad, but he is a successful businessman with a never-ending flow of money. Dennis Reynolds is a psychopath, but he's also intelligent, has a decent apartment and life, and is good with women, albeit in a creepy way. Basically, every character in the US...
I've never really seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I've seen like clips of it. I know people who have enjoyed it. But I've never like sat down and even watched maybe one episode, but no more than that.
Version of The Office has redeemable, albeit in a creepy way. Basically, every character in the US version of The Office has redeemable, lovable features, from wisecracking Jim to loyal Dwight, endearing Michael Scott to musically talented and wealthy Andy Bernard. The point here is that American comedy takes a hopeful view of the world and of people in...
You have Toby, though. Toby? Nothing redeemable, all right? Meredith? Actually.
General. The point here is that American comedy takes a hopeful view of the world and of people in general, seeing the good in characters despite their flaws. There's also a sense of growth in US comedy as people learn and change over time. British comedy inspires much more despair about the state of the world. Characters rarely change or grow any better. They are kept in a self-imposed stasis owing to their own shortcomings. Basil Fawlty never improves his hotel. Mark never meets the perfect woman. Will, Jay, Neil and Simon never become cool.
Spoilers.
And David Brent ends The Office. Will, Jay, Neil and Simon never become cool or well liked. And David Brent ends The Office in 5.
I don't want to hear that.
What a point about the difference in outlook between the U.S.
I'll play it for you guys.
From his job. This ties into a broader point about the difference in outlook between the US and the UK. The concept of the American dream is embedded in American comedy, an idea that you can be a self-made person, that you can do what you want to do and make a success out of your life. As Stephen Fry outlines, there's an idea in American comedy that anyone could be the president of the States if they worked hard enough. In the UK, however, there's far more skepticism about what we can achieve and how much we can really change. The characters in UK comedies never learn from their mistakes, and it's normally a misguided view about their ability to get a promotion.
I'm bringing back Michael Scott, okay? Michael Scott, he's always like horrible with women, and he's just and at the end of the by the end of the show, or by even by the time he leaves the show as a main character, he somehow found Holly Flax, like someone that's just like him, perfect love story, and he goes out to live with her in Colorado, live happily ever after. That's not supposed to happen. I don't mean like in life you can't. I'm not trying to say that. I mean like in the show. I like it would have been like a whole joke is that like he's always like, yep. But by the time I was 40, I thought I'm gonna have like 8 kids. And wait, I think he even has kids at the end of the show. It's a reflection of life. Yes, great things can happen, but it doesn't always end up perfectly for everyone. And it's a sad thing, but that's what comedy is about, is making light of a lot of things that are not pleasant things. And am I going too far here?
The girl, improve their business, etc., that leads to their downfall. This leads to some very different content in the comedy that's produced. A lot of UK comedy relies on wordplay, specifically on insults.
Stand over there, right?
Dora the Explorer.
And do not move, or I will perform a fucking living fucking autopsy on you. With a fucking rusty spade, and I'll have your kidneys for fucking cufflinks.
The thick of it is endless insults. Peep Show gives a running commentary of the characters' insulting thoughts about one another. Blackadder is always tearing people down with his wordplay. Now compare this with US comedy. What you often find is that slapstick takes preference over wordplay, with characters doing funny or silly things such as falling over, dropping things, ruining something, etc. In American comedy, what you do is funny rather than who you are. In UK comedy, it's your character itself that's at stake.
You know what? Like in UK comedy, Peep Show, Faulty Towers, you know, pick one. It really feels like you could meet this real person in real life, or a lot of, they just don't seem like people. They just, it's like, oh, we're living in this great apartment, no jobs, or some have jobs. It seems like Americans, maybe if comedy says anything about Americans, American comedy says anything about Americans, it's that Americans don't want to face reality, whereas Britain people face reality and laugh at it in a lot of ways. American people are just like, what? No, 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 perfect, go. And I think that explains it. By the way, I'm not ready to say British comedy is better, okay? I'm not ready to say that. Like, I like the beginning of the American Office better than the British Office. It gets worse as the seasons go on, and it's worse than the British Office. But I think I enjoy, this is my personal opinion, this is not me trying to say, like, this is what comedy is. It's just me. I love the first few seasons of The Office. I think it's not too American, but it still has an American aspects to it that I enjoy. And so I'm not just trying to be like, oh, everything American sucks and everything British is awesome here. But there is more reality in British comedy, I think, than in American.
Insulted, no matter who you are or what you do.
And both can be fun. Like, both can be good.
A final point I want to briefly touch on.
Sorry.
In comedy, it's your character itself that's at stake. The person you are is what is insulted, no matter who you are or what you do. A final point I want to briefly touch on is the difference between editing, music and colour in US and UK comedy. Take the tone of the UK Office opening, dark and depressing with dreary music to match. Contrast this with the Office US opening, takes boring shots of Scranton but puts upbeat music over it. Examples of this are numerous throughout US and UK comedy.
See, I don't know what this says about me as an individual, but I like the British Office. It's funny, but it kind of gets to me, you know? It's like, I don't want to feel this way sometimes, you know? And sometimes I just want an American Office, like nonsense earlier seasons. Don't make it a crazy movie. But, yeah, I can't word things.
All US sitcoms are brightly lit and coloured to give a sense of optimism, whereas UK comedies normally have dull, grim colours that off-put their viewer. To finish, I want to return to the Ricky Gervais quote I started with. Americans don't hide their hopes, fears, ambitions, and reward the successes of their characters. In the UK, we take life's losers and laugh at them, despite their relatability. Often, UK comedy turns the mirror on its audience, and we laugh at ourselves.
Both are needed and are refreshing. I think both types of comedy are refreshing, and watching only one, is just not a great time. And so a little variety in the American approach or British approach, I think is good. Very interesting. I think he made some really, really good points. Yeah, I would love to see what you guys have to say. You agree or disagree with me or whatever he said. We'd love to see it down in the comments. Hope you all are doing well. All right. If not, chin up. You'll be good soon. Don't worry. There's that optimism, I guess. Yeah, don't worry. Emotions are fickle. All right. See you guys next time. Bye.